Mackenzie Carson finding the space and getting through for the score, her second.
And that's Tallinn gone over for her try.
First touch of the game. How about that for an impact?
She's certainly going to remember that score. Abi Burton opening the account for Trailfinders.
My mum and dad nearly lost their little girl, and they watched me having these fits whilst I was asleep in a coma, and they couldn't do anything about it. You're listening to the England Rugby Podcast, O2 Inside Line. I'm Abi Burton. My name's Abi Burton and I play for Trailfinders Women and for the Red Roses. So I play back row. I kind of do the work that nobody else really wants to do on the pitch. Like to get stuck into all the contact areas, all the carrying, kind of the hustle and bustle of rugby, really. That's kind of my role on the pitch. I would say that the contact area makes the best back rowers. They're the people who are willing to fight and get their head into places that probably people don't want to get it into. And that's what I would say sets the best back rowers apart from the world. Throughout my whole of my career, I've always aspired to be like Al Matthews. She's going to hate me for saying that, but growing up, she was always a person who I watched and I wanted to be like. But also Adi Savea, he's brilliant on and off the ball, and his leadership qualities really set him apart from anybody else in the game, really. Growing up, I was the classic dominant, bossy big sister. Parents would have described me as just throwing myself into anything really, but also going into it head first. But definitely just wanted to get involved in any sport that I possibly could. Just wanted to try everything, whether it be football, netball, athletics, even like boxing with my brothers, just anything. Wanted to kind of show that I was the big older sister. I grew up in Leeds, up in Yorkshire. Family currently live in Castleford at the moment, which is like a really strong kind of rugby league town. Growing up, there was my mum, Sarah, she's amazing. My dad, Danny, and then my two younger brothers, Joe and Oliver, who are both twins. My grandparents all had a really big impact on my life growing up. Mum and dad worked a lot. They're both in the police. So if they were both working, there was three of us to look after. So my grandparents really made a big part in kind of the shape of our lives and giving us the opportunities that we could have. And that was solely a lot of the time down to them. Rugby's probably one of the only constants that's ever been throughout my life. Dad played professional rugby league. My two brothers both play semi-pro. But growing up, it was always on a Saturday, we're down to the rugby club. Like there's photos of me and my brothers with trophies on top of my head, and it was always something that was there. Did rugby tots when I was younger, but kind of took a step away from rugby between like the ages of 5 to 13 to focus on like swimming a little bit more. But it was always there. It was always on our TV. Still is always on in our TV. My dad watches reruns of NRL greatest hit videos all the time in our house. Something that really like unites the Burton family together is definitely rugby. Kind of my first experience was when I was 13. I just finished swimming. I then went to mum and I was like, I want to play. She's pulling her hair out at this point because she's like, God, there's all four of you. But yeah, they took me down to my local rugby club, which is Cass Rugby Union. I went on the pitch as a hooker. So first time into the sport, straight into the scrum. And I absolutely loved it. And I came off the pitch and I said those exact words to my mum. I was like, I absolutely love that. I just want to keep on doing it. Castleford's a funny place. It is very rugby league dominated, but it was kind of my dad had sat me down and said, do you want to do this as like a career? And my dad's very straightforward and to the point. To a 13-year-old, that's probably quite a scary topic. If I could do this as a career, I would love to do it. And he was like, you need to play rugby union, mate. Women's rugby league is not going to get there for quite a while, and it is getting there now, but the fact that I've been able to go down this path and become professional is like everything that I dreamed and wanted from that conversation when I was 13 years old. I've met some of my best friends who've played with me since I was 13 years old in that Castleford Rugby Union team, and that was initially the first thing that drew me to that. I wasn't just playing for myself, I was playing for all these other girls around me as well. I could just be me, and that was one of the things that really drew me to the sport, that I could just express myself in a way that I probably couldn't express myself in an individual sport. Mum and dad basically gave us every single opportunity that I could possibly have wished for. They'd take me to training, they'd take Joe and Oliver to training at the same time as well. So we were always split between our times. But then when it kind of got to age of 16, I had the opportunity to go away to a college. So I went to Hartpury College for rugby, and mum and dad gave me the opportunity to be able to do that. Like it's not free to move 4 hours away from your home. Also quite selfishly as well, unselfish from my mum. She literally let her baby go 4 hours away. Like I was 16 years old and but you don't usually ever live anywhere else other than with your family. I can't imagine how scary that must have been for her. And my dad did say to her, when my mum was saying, we can't let her go 4 hours away. And Dad's like, come on, like she just wants to do it. Let her throw herself into it. Definitely my dad was probably the person who helped her feel okay about it. They facilitated probably my whole rugby journey by just being super supportive. We definitely have different relationships between me, mum and my dad. Actually, in the past couple of years, I've told my dad that I don't want him to be a rugby coach. I just want him to be my dad. My dad always coached my two younger brothers growing up, but he never coached me. Only sometimes, but I didn't want him to. I just wanted him to be the separation from the sport and then also my parent. My mum just is in her own world. She's happy if I do well. She's happy if I even get on the pitch. But she sees it from like quite a raw place of she just wants me to be happy. My dad sees it in a little bit more of an analytical way. But I would say that my relationships are different, but I'm still super close to both of them. They are both like my rocks. If I do want something more rugby related, I do go to my dad. Mum's got a bit more of that softer side, but like I wouldn't have it any other way really. He's a very knowledgeable coach. Like he coaches through the Leeds Rhinos Academy. So I understand where he's coming from, but sometimes like, please just bring my dad, which he gets. And yeah, he's doing a good job of it now. Moved away to Hartpury when I was 16 years old, and it was a complete change. Me and my family are really close, so to have none of them really there, they can afford for you to go there, but my mum and dad couldn't afford for me to go back up and down the country every single weekend to go and see them. It definitely meant that I had to grow up a lot quite quickly, like being able to take care of myself, but also you got to find your feet quite quickly. It's kind of a sink or swim, and you've got to be very sure of yourself and sure of your personality, because otherwise you can go into an environment like that with nobody there to really back your corner and you could just sink. It can kind of push people in one or two ways, but I definitely took it by two hands and just absolutely ran with it. And I'm very, very grateful that, yeah, mum and dad were able to give me that opportunity. I knew straight away, as soon as when I moved to Hartpury, they've got like a wall there of all the women who have gone on to play for England, and I knew that I wanted to be one of those names on there, and all my effort paid off, because when I was 18 I got offered a sevens contract to be able to go in to play for England sevens, and I just knew that everything that I had done at that moment in time when I got offered that contract was worth it. It was worth moving away 4 hours from home. It was worth not being able to see like my brothers grow into the young men that they are now, missing birthdays, missing everything. It all in turn ended up being really worth it. When I got that phone call to say that I was contracted to go into one of the only professional women's setups that it was in 2018. From when I was swimming when I was younger, I always wanted to go to an Olympics. Like that was always a thing that I was like dying to do. But then kind of my avenue and the way I looked at it changed a little bit. And then when I got offered my sevens contract, the fire came back within me of this could actually be a real thing that could happen, which I never thought it would have been again. At the time, I got offered a 15s and a 7s contract and I had to choose, and I just knew that I couldn't let the opportunity of like a childhood dream. I grew up watching Michael Phelps swim, like one of the greatest Olympians of all time, and I knew that I couldn't let that opportunity go, and that's why I had to choose to go into the 7s. The opportunity of going to the pinnacle of sport, like the Olympics, is unbelievable, whichever way you look at it. I couldn't miss that opportunity, so that was always the goal, was want to become an Olympian and want to get an Olympic medal.
Oh, and the referee saying the try's been scored. She's certainly going to remember that score. Abi Burton opening the account for Trailfinders.
I'm Mackenzie Carson. I play for Gloucester Hartpury and the Red Roses. Abi Burton, I would definitely describe her as resilient. I mean, her story is just incredible, and the things that she's been through. Every time we've ever spoken, it's just been really positive, and she just brings such good energy into the group. As a player and as a person, definitely resilient. She just never stops.
I'm Morwenna, and I play for Sale Sharks and England. I think on the pitch, Abi Burton is hardworking and will just graft all the time. Playing against her, you're always kind of like, she just keeps on going. And she puts the hard shots in, she carries well. Off the pitch, very calm. I think just like lives in the moment person. It's just amazing how she's come back from that illness and got back to where she is. I think that's incredible to do.
Was still going forward, Burton going forward, and she's got over. A wonderful power from Abi Burton.
A couple of months after the 2021 Olympics in Tokyo, coming off the back of coming fourth and then trying to deal with all that, and actually was playing probably the best rugby that I'd ever played. I'd just come back from a little MCL injury and I started to act like a little bit strange and a little bit weird. A lot of the girls thought it was down to, oh, she's just coming back from injury, like she'll be all right. And then kind of depression got thrown around a little bit, and yeah, it was quite a weird time coming around May 2022 when all of it started to really kick off. My body language, my demeanour, my personality, the way that I was speaking started to change, and in turn put that down to the depression to begin with, but then I started to have seizures. But the thing is when I speak about all of this, like I don't remember any of it, so I couldn't even tell you what a seizure would even feel like if I thought one was coming on. So in June, after I'd started acting all strange and everything, I had my first seizure on the 15th of June in 2022 whilst I was sat at the dinner table talking to my mum. Following on from that, my behaviour kind of went from I was quite down and quite depressed to I was like manic. So my body kind of went from the fight or flight, from the flight to I was ready to fight, which in turn led to I was like punching my mum in the face whilst I wanted to get past her, trying to get out of the house like unclothed. They took like the knives away in the house because they just didn't know what I was going to do because I was so manic and so aggressive towards like even my family. Following on from that, I had a seizure from the 15th, the 16th and the 17th, and the paramedics came to the house and they just put it down to stress at the time. I never saw a neurologist. So then eventually after the third seizure, the home treatment team came to my house and just said, like, if you won't take her to a psych ward, like we will take her. So it was kind of the decision that my mum and dad had to make at the time, which was we need to take her to the psychiatric unit to basically deal with her. But during this time, my behaviour was just getting worse and worse. Kept having the seizures, was having absent seizures, fitting seizures, lip smacking seizures, everything. And they just didn't know what was initially wrong with me, which then later on we found out that it wasn't a mental illness, it was a physical illness. The last memory that I have is like in the middle of May. It was our shirt presentation in Toulouse. I don't then remember playing after that. I have no memory basically from, I'd probably say the middle of May until then when I woke up from the coma that I was in the middle of August, which like actually horrifies me, the fact that I punched my mum in the face and I tried to headbutt my younger brothers and were ripping banisters off in the house because that's so unlike my demeanour and my personality. Like, yeah, on the pitch, I'm as aggressive as they come, but off the pitch, I'm so soft and literally I care so much about the people that I love. And then the fact that that happened whilst I was ill, I was like absolutely horrified when my mum told me when I woke up, but she was saying to me that it wasn't you, like it wasn't you, that's not you. Everybody knows that wasn't you. But it was really hard when I started to recover. Like I had all those feelings of guilt, but couldn't really place them to any sort of memories, which is really hard and really strange. And after I was ill, I was really grateful that like England supported me and I was able to go to therapy and put those feelings to somebody else who wasn't one of my family members or one of my friends. Trying to figure out grief and figure out trauma and guilt is so hard when you can't actually remember what happened. I had carried a lot of guilt that I don't remember, and then my mum and dad nearly lost their little girl. And they watched me having these fits whilst I was asleep in a coma and they couldn't do anything about it. I carry a lot of guilt that I don't remember a thing at all. Like it's really hard. I think I was in the psych unit for over 2 weeks. During this time, I was still having seizures, but they didn't know if I was schizophrenic. They didn't know if I had bipolar. They just didn't know what it was. And then eventually there was a man named Mark who saw my details, saw my notes on the Mid Yorkshire Trust database, because he researches autoimmune illnesses. And he looked at my case, and apparently I've met Mark, and he said I was up all night thinking about it and I knew what it was. And then I started just putting in some of your symptoms into the internet, and then bam, I knew I had it. And it came up with autoimmune NMDA receptor encephalitis, which is what I was eventually diagnosed with. And he was like, I just knew. He then came onto the psych ward, saw my dad and was like, oh, can I take some of your daughter's blood? Because needed consent at the time, because I was under different sections where you can't basically have consent for yourself. And he was like, yep, do it. Do whatever you need to do. Sent off my blood to Oxford Experimental Lab, and it came back positive for that type of encephalitis. After that, I still unfortunately wasn't moved from the psych unit for a good couple of days until one of the nurses found me having a seizure. They wouldn't move me to Leeds Hospital because I was too manic to move, basically, and they have a neurology specialist ward in Leeds, but they couldn't move me because I was so agitated. I just kept pulling all the medication, all the cannulas, anything out my arms. Wouldn't really take anything orally either, other than something that I wanted to take. One day my dad said that I just had enough, and I just ripped everything out my arms and I just bust through the doors. I was knocking patients out the way. In hospital, there's obviously those metal doors which you've got to press to get out. I apparently just ran straight through the doors, was knocking the security guards left, right and centre. Eventually they managed to get me to the floor and calm me down, sedate me, came to a conclusion that we can't carry on like this. So it was when my dad was with me in the hospital one day, they just said to her, right, we are putting her in a medical induced coma to manage her. But my dad still had to consent, and that my dad holds a lot of guilt around that day, because he basically thought that he was killing me by sending me off to be in a coma. But he consented to it. I was meant to be in the coma for 3 days, and that turned into 3.5 weeks. During that time, I had pneumonia a few times. I kept having the seizures whilst I was asleep. They just couldn't wake me up because they knew that I would eventually get brain damage if they would have woken me up to still function during having the seizures. So I had 6 or 7 plasma exchanges. Nothing was really working until someone basically suggested rituximab, which is a chemo-based treatment which you get from America. So they brought it over. I had 1 dose of that and my seizures stopped whilst I was asleep. So they decided, we'll wake her up slowly. Eventually woke up. First proper memory that I have is me and my mum and my dad, we're all holding hands and we're crying. And I actually have my dad and me tattooed on here. It's one of my first photos that I have from when I actually woke up. And it was such a special moment, but I was so out of it. I thought I'd had a baby. I just didn't know what had happened to me. I had no desire to ask anybody what had happened until probably about 3 or 4 weeks later, I was I was in a coma and I was asleep, and it's all a really weird feeling. But until I had that rituximab, they basically said to my mum and dad, prepare that she's not gonna wake back up, which was the reality that we were faced with. But as soon as I woke up, was then moved back down to A2, which was the stroke and neurology unit, put me in a corner, quiet place in the ward, was on loads of medication. I couldn't walk, I couldn't talk, I couldn't read, I couldn't write, which going from a strapping rugby player to I can't even get myself up to go to the toilet was crazy. I couldn't even hold my own body weight. I went from 85 kilos to 65 kilos in the space of those months, a shell kind of myself. As soon as I woke up, I was on then steroids, I was on anti-seizure medication. I'd had the second dose of rituximab, which I had to go to another hospital for. Came back the next day and I was right, ready to take on the world, guys. Get me in that physio room. And I've got videos of me trying to lift 1 kilo dumbbells, and I'm doing it, but not in a very good fashion. But after that, that's when kind of my recovery started. Just threw myself into it, really. After I was ill, it definitely changed my mum and dad's relationship. I'd say that maybe a few years ago, I was a bit of a bratty teenager who really didn't want loads to do with them, but loved them very much still. But now I can't wait to see them. The fact that it happened, I wouldn't change it. To begin with, when I first came out of hospital, I didn't realise probably how much my mum and dad had been through during that time. They were sleeping in the car at Pinderfield Hospital, so then they weren't too far away in case I had some sort of an episode. And the fact that they were doing that while still taking care of my brothers, they are real life superheroes in my eyes. My perspective on life has definitely changed. I can't take anything for granted. If I ever relapse, I might not be able to play again. So the fact that I kind of play every game like it's going to be my last, and I know that's really cliche to say, but it's given me that perspective of you've only got one life and you've just got to run with it. You've just got to do everything you can to be the best version of yourself every single day. You can't waste any days. But no, it's definitely made me, I would say, a better person overall.
I'm Sarah Burton and I'm Abi Burton's mum. So Abi, as a little girl, she was very busy, always on the go. The more adventurous she could do, she would. I think it was about 14, she said, I want to play rugby. And I said to Dan, oh, she wants to play rugby. He said, oh, let her play. She'll get it out of the system. She won't like it. It'll be fine. So I thought, right, okay. So she played her first game for school for St Wilfrid's and she came back in and I said, how was it then? And she put her bag down and she looked at me, little glint in her eye. She went, I loved it. So it was around about the start of June. She'd come home because she felt unwell. She kept saying to me, I'm really confused. I can't think. Over a number of days, she deteriorated and she said, my life's rubbish. I've got nothing to look forward to. And at the time, she was training for the Commonwealths and everything was going really good for her. And she had a really big seizure whilst I was talking to her. Over the next couple of days, she had a lot more seizures and then this very psychotic type behaviour. So she was basically fighting everybody. She didn't have any boundaries. She would pick up anything that was near her and hit you with it. She would try and get out of the house constantly. We'd got the key in the door and I put my hand on the door and she punched me in the face and she'd bust my lip open. But she had absolutely no knowledge of doing it. And Abi is that big softie and she would never ever hurt me. She'd never hurt anybody. She's not a fighter. Sitting in the car and taking her to a psychiatric hospital was just horrendous. It went from the happy-go-lucky Abi to somebody that we barely recognised. And it was really tough because we could only see her for half an hour a day. And sometimes we couldn't see her at all. On this particular day, he said there were so many doctors and they just said to me, we've got to take this out of your hands now and we can't keep her like this. She needs to go into an induced coma. So he really wrangled with that for ages. It really upset him because in our line of work, we see people go into induced comas and they don't come out. And he just basically said to me, I've just condemned her to death. She's not going to come out. She's not going to survive it. We also knew that that was the only way that she would get better. We went to see her when they'd woken her up and the tubes were out. She wasn't doing anything. She was just kind of looking round. And I thought, is this it for her? You know, has it caused some damage? And then I phoned up one morning and one of the nurses said, oh, I've been waiting for you to ring. She spoke to me. And I heard one of the doctors saying, this is brilliant. This is brilliant. Can't believe it. Can't believe this recovery she's making. She gradually, each day we saw a little bit of improvement and a little bit more talking. It was a slow recovery. She wanted to fly through it and get back on that pitch, so which doesn't surprise me with Abi. I think as a family we did change, and I've got to say probably for the better. And I think you have more of an appreciation of life. She's got that second chance, and she's got that second chance to get back to every part of her life that she had before. It was just nice seeing her get back to how she was on the pitch. She just never gives in. No matter how long something takes her, she's a warrior, really. She really is. She makes me proud every day.
My name's Mark Harper, and I'm the Research Management and Governance Lead for the South West Yorkshire NHS Mental Health Trust. I first came across Abi by a referral from a duty doctor. As the day went on, I must have been processing that information. The story goes is that we're actually in bed at the time. Something hit me just like a thunderbolt. Oh my God, this looks like a case of encephalitis, a typical encephalitis presentation. So I jumped out of bed and looked at Abi's notes, and I was 99% sure it was an encephalitis case. Encephalitis is a life-threatening disease if you don't intervene. The key to recovery is intervening as early as possible. I was part of that process, but I think without the parents responding quickly, I think the outcome could have been very different. So we had a really good moment where I actually got to meet Abi for the first time, because she couldn't remember anything about me and I didn't really know her either. So that was a really nice moment. I think that was March the following year when I actually finally met her. What an ambassador for, encephalitis and for hope for people that are experiencing profound conditions. So it's had a real big difference in terms of raising that awareness within our mental health services. To see Abi on that pitch doing what she's doing now from where she was 3 years ago, it's absolutely amazing. I think they feel as if it's me that's, kind of saved Abi's life, but I don't accept that at all. It's there's a number of factors that led to Abi's recovery and to where she is now. And she's done the hard work. Nobody else. Abi's done it all herself. What a fantastic person.
My relationship with my body has definitely been rocky ever since I was probably 15, 14 years old. I knew that I didn't look like other girls my age. I was very broad, very muscular, a lot more muscular than a lot of the boys, which definitely made me feel uncomfortable in a lot of social settings, and in turn ended up with having body dysmorphia. Don't truly think it ever goes away, but you learn to deal with it a lot better. I just felt like I didn't fit in anywhere, didn't feel attractive, really just wanted to hide anything, any sort of part of my body, especially my arms. I really struggled with that, especially through the ages of 16 to 18. And it wasn't until I went into the sevens and it was actually Natasha Hunt at the time. She said to me, we care about you performing. We don't care about what you look like. And when I kind of looked at it in that way, it helped me just change my perspective. Yes, I still have a lot of days where I look at myself and I go, oh, God, this day is not going to be a good day. And that can literally start from me looking into the mirror. But then I have to change my perception of it, of my body is made for a purpose. My body's made to play international rugby. It's not made to just do nothing all day. And that's why I have so much muscle. That's why I'm so strong. That's why I'm so powerful and athletic. And I'm super proud to be a powerful woman, both physically and mentally, and it's definitely something that I've tried to embrace over the past 5-6 years, and I definitely think I'm getting there with it. I think we definitely do have a responsibility to show who we are as people, whether that be through the positives or the negatives. It's something that I wish when I was younger, I had somebody who I could look up to, who understood what I was going through. And you kind of never really saw that, especially when I was growing up. I definitely want to pave the path. It's okay if you do feel uncomfortable, but how do we get you to kind of change the narrative and change a bit of the mindset around that? Definitely my voice is there, and I want to be able to project that and to be able to help young girls throughout the world understand that it is okay, but also if you're powerful, that is brilliant. If you are powerful, if you are strong, if you are athletic, that is amazing. There is so many women who wish they could be like that, but it's probably just not vocalized a lot in our society, in our culture. So definitely by me being that visible kind of athlete who people can relate to is a really powerful thing. I coach university girls. A lot of them have body issues, and the fact that they can come to me and be able to speak to me about it, which maybe if it was somebody different, they wouldn't feel as comfortable, but I'm there to help them. And that's the thing, with me, that yes, I've got my own struggles and been through my own journeys, but I've got to be able to be there to help other people as well, which I truly think I'm doing. Coming up next on the England Rugby Podcast, O2 Inside Line.
I was in a cast for 6 weeks, completely non-weight bearing on crutches, which is quite challenging, stairs, carrying something, even something like making a cup of tea in the kitchen. Brilliant. How do I get that to where I want to drink it on the sofa? Just daft things like that.